So a mistake is made on your part when you think that white people suffer the same as black people. Or as many Jews will say, well, we're a minority too. Or the Irish will say, well, we used to be a minority. No one's a minority like we are. They didn't need civil rights legislation to solve any other minority problem. It didn't take a civil war to solve any other minority problem. It didn't take Supreme Court decisions to solve any other minority problem or legislation. It takes none of that action to solve the minority problems of these other people. So a mistake is made on your part when you think that white people suffer the same as black people. Or as many Jews will say, well, we're a minority too. Or the Irish will say, well, we used to be a minority. No one's a minority like we are. They didn't need civil rights legislation to solve any other minority problem. It didn't take a civil war to solve any other minority problem. It didn't take Supreme Court decisions to solve any other minority problem or legislation. It takes none of that action to solve the minority problems of these other people.
I started this segment with Malcolm X speaking on that for a very specific reason. Even though things have gotten drastically better, even from the time that Malcolm X was here and speaking to 2023, there was a point in time where being black in America was a very negative thing. And it wasn't hidden racism or subtle racism. It was overt racism. Black people were being killed and lynched for entertainment, for shit that they never did. Black people in a time in this country's history were very mistreated. But it is 2023. It is a 160 from what it was. And the groundwork that my ancestors and the ancestors of other black people that are listening laid is the very foundation for black African American success today. Malcolm X was very right. There was not another minority that has come to this country that did not have inalienable human rights. It took laws and legislation to get black folks to be treated fairly. Not ahead of the game, just to be treated fairly. Hell, it took laws just to get our foot in the door. So when I see things like this, headline, Realtor helps LGBTQ plus Texans leave state through Rainbow Underground Railroad.
What?
What the literal dude, that is an insult to all those people that made that harsh journey on the Underground Railroad from the south to the north. Not all of them making it. That is an insult to Harriet Tubman that led all those perilous journeys from the south to the north, back to the south to take people, slaves, back up north. That is an insult to every white person in the south that helped Harriet Tubman on that journey that comprised the Underground Railroad. You dumbass, you arrogant little shit, you hyperbolic hole.
How dare you?
It was called the Underground Railroad because black people, the slaves, weren't allowed to leave. They weren't supposed to be free. They had to stay where the they were. You can go in 2023 wherever the you choose. You don't have to sneak around and slink around. You see, this is why the alphabet mob are getting so much pushback now. The arrogance.
Sheer fucking hubris.
The over-victimization, the phantom victimization of what the your sexuality is blown far the out of proportion. Period. I'm reading this article from The Hill where this realtor named Paul Lewis, who says, quoting, the lifelong Texan committed in January to begin looking for somewhere else to move. He explained how two factors ultimately solidified that decision, pointing to the growing number of LGBTQ plus restrictions introduced this legislative session, as well as the frequency of deadly mass shootings happening in the state. Let's just stop right there. Let me address the first part of what the he said. when he talks about the growing number of alphabet mob restrictions introduced this legislative session.
And already, lawmakers began filing hundreds of bills today ahead of the next session, and some of that proposed legislation includes further restrictions on the state's transgender community. One would ban athletes at the college level from competing in sports matching their gender identity, while another would officially deem treatments for trans children as child abuse.
He is referring to laws that stop child mutilation, so doctors cannot perform gender surgeries on minors. He's talking about laws where biological males cannot compete with biological females in athletics in the state of Texas. Common sense, he says, is anti-LGBTQ+. Common sense. Things like letting a child be a child and not f***ing up their life before they started is anti-alphabet mob. Somehow addressing and acknowledging the fact that people that are born men have a physical advantage over women, so they should not be allowed to compete in these same sports against one another. Somehow that offends you. That's anti-you. Another piece of legislation where they will not allow gender ideology to be taught to preteens, to elementary school kids. That means that somehow this state is anti-alphabet mob. We're not with the rainbow crew. Well, if that's it, I say fine. F it. Tear your ass.
Bye, Felicia.
Because that's common sense shit, man. Whatever this fascination is that the alphabet mob, no, Tucker, stop yourself right there. You know what the fascination is. It is their attempt to create a new world. A new world order. That's the only reasonable conclusion that can come from trying to teach children who are learning 2 + 2 is 4 and you cannot put a square peg through a round hole. That would be the only reason to try to get those type of minds to understand gender ideology. These are little individuals that can't even write their names yet. Come on, man. And the silent majority, as I've said, is no longer silent. We're telling you to stop this shit. If you don't like it, leave.
Move it, get out the way.
Which brings me back to the insult. Underground Railroad? You can leave whenever the you want.
So get your bags and get the hell on.
You don't have to stay here. You don't have to sneak. I mean,
Dodson, we've got Dodson here. See, nobody cares.
You don't have to. Oh, I better not tell anybody I'm gay or they might try to stop me from leaving. No, the we won't. Hell, we'll even hold the door before you.
Get your shit, and get out!
Leave. To call that shit some form of Underground Railroad? You not sneaking motherfuckers out from being oppressed. The alphabet mob isn't being held to some kind of level of subservitude or subservience or slavery. You are making yourselves victims. No one else is. You can't pinpoint to one thing. What rights are being taken away from y'all? Feel free. Leave it in the comments section below or email us at freemindthinkers2022@gmail.com. What rights do y'all not have that the rest of the world has? What rights are being taken away from you? How are you being forced into hiding? One of the greatest things I never understood during this whole alphabet mob push over the last few years is why the black folks have been co-signing it so strong. You see, the alphabet mob done told you dumb that we're just like you. We're oppressed like you. We're mistreated like you. Y'all heard what Malcolm X said, right? There has never been another minority in this nation like black people. And I highly doubt there ever will be. Let's put cards on the table. The same rights that were used to stop discriminating against gay people back in the 80s and 90s are based on the civil rights that black folks fought and died for.
So what I believe you were trying to say is thank you.
Thank you?
You're welcome.
So get the off our coattails. It's an insult to people who actually fought for that, for people who actually suffered, sacrificed, and in situations died for that. And you want to say Rainbow Underground Railroad?
Get the fuck out of here.
There is no such thing. Stop that. That ranks up there with transgender kids. That's a fucking myth. So miss me with the Underground Railroad, bruh. Side note, when you talk about all the quote-unquote mass shootings in Texas, that was Allen, that was Uvalde. And actually, if you look up some of the other states and what the definition of a mass shooting is, Texas ain't so bad. But I digress. Getting back to the Underground Railroad bullshit, no one is stopping you. No one is saying that you can't leave. No one is forcing you to leave. There are entire areas, neighborhoods, segments of Dallas literally dedicated to the alphabet mob. And you feel oppressed because they have laws that won't let y'all up children?
Get the fuck out of here.
That bull. Look, man, if you want to go somewhere that has fewer restrictive laws for the alphabet mob to up kids, feel free to go there. But don't treat it like you're escaping some kind of hellhole. Don't make believe like you're saving lives. Because if you look at the record, while you're talking about mass shootings, hey, 5 of the most recent mass shootings have all been by alphabet mob identifiers. Check yourself and the privilege that that rainbow gives you. Now hop your ass on that rainbow road and get the fuck out of Texas. You can catch the rest of that conversation on our Free Mind Thinkers podcast, which you can listen to wherever you listen to any of your favorite podcasts. We are on Amazon Music, Google Podcasts, iHeartRadio, and Pandora. So give us a listen there.